in-person talk, which is a presentation, and then we have 2 lightning presentations, which will be online. So we are a hybrid session, and hopefully it will be an arousal session for you. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Tony Cornford from the LSE. I've known Tony for about 50 or 60 years now, I think. So it's really good that we are both still going. So without further ado, Tony, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I am Tony Cornford, and indeed I've been around a long time, long enough to be retired technically from the LSE, but still involved in the international program, as I still call it, but I think I'm supposed to call it worldwide, from the University of London, the undergraduate degrees that LSE is lead a college for, and that's the background to what I'm going to talk about here. Okay, and my colleagues here who worked on this study, I should note Steve Smithson from LSE and Magda Hatchuri from UCL. Okay, next. We're going to discuss today a study which was funded by the CDE in their small research project funding from last year, which was motivated in our minds, at least, by our many years of running courses in that University of London external program, degree program with undergraduates, and in particular the development of a new course for a new degree program called Management and Digital Innovation. The degree program was called that, and this particular course, Digital Infrastructure for Business, an introductory first-year course for students taking the program, which asked them to learn about some of the history of digital infrastructures, the internet in particular, I suppose, the history of the World Wide Web, its evolution, the processes by which infrastructures are created, sustained, and developed, and of course the business uses made of them. We come to things like e-commerce, logistics, and digital business platforms more generally. So it's an introductory course taught around the world to students all around the world. Have the next slide. Am I supposed to press a button, or you press the button? You press the button. Okay, good. We have a job to do here. Okay, so it's around the world. There are students all around the world taking this particular course and studying in this particular program, and they do share a lot of experience in their everyday lives with digital tools like mobile phones and social networking and e-commerce and so on. And interestingly, everybody in the world's been through the COVID pandemic, which has sort of reinforced a lot of digital paraphernalia in many people's lives, not everybody in this program, perhaps, but for many people. But we do recognize that our student population live in very different countries, ranging from high-income countries through middle-income countries to a number of students in very poor countries. So the way they see digital and the way they have a knowledge and experience will be different. And possibly the things that would be relevant or interesting to them in this space will be different too. And we, as the teachers and the syllabus developers, have to somehow respond to this. And that's what the research was born out of, our desire to somehow be better at picking up the differences of the different kinds of students in different times of contexts. One example which struck me particularly and started us off down this route was asking questions about smart cities. Okay, one of the sort of ideas of digital infrastructures is they allow a better urban environment. You can manage it better through traffic, through pollution, through education, through transport, all sorts of things. But that means that something completely different to a student in Lima, Peru, and a student in Singapore or a student in Sri Lanka. And when they write about it, it was interesting to us that the first thing they write about is, as you were, the global discourse. This is the future, this is what you can do, example of Amsterdam, example of London, maybe, example of And then the good students say, but where I live, that's not quite the way it works, or it won't work very well, or we have other priorities. You know, they're translating it into their local context. And that was interesting to us, and we wanted to know a little bit more about how they did this and what they thought of it, and how they thought it should be reflected in our research. In our courses, and so hence our research. Okay, next one. So we undertook a survey of the students using Qualtrics online survey system, which I was impressed with. First time I'd used it, and I thought, boy, this is good. Optimized for phone, short, 10-minute survey. Assumption was students would use it on the phone, not laptop or anything like that. Likert scales and a little bit of free text. We'll come to that. Focus on opinion, no demographics. We don't ask people what their highest educational level is and whether they're male or female. And there's a lot of garbage you can push to one side if you're really interested in one thing, which we sort of were. The population we surveyed were the cohort of students taking the exam in 2018, 19, and 20. So 3 years, 600 odd students, of which the university had emails for 415 at the time we set out to do the survey. Unfortunately, we didn't record how many of those bounced, how many of them turned out to be dead emails, but it would have been interesting to know that. We got good responses from 80 students. We got responses from 90 something, but the ones we could use were down to 80, which is 30% of the population or 19% of the emails sent. And I feel quite pleased with that for these kinds of surveys. Well, not too pleased. Interestingly, the response by cohort was very similar. Even if you took the exam 3 years ago, you were about as likely to respond as if you took the exam just one year ago, which is telling us something, and I'm not quite sure what it's telling us. Okay, next. Where are these respondents from? Well, they're all around the world. Singapore is the largest centre that teaches this programme, and it certainly was in the early years, so it's a bit biased to Singapore, as you'll see. 39 from Singapore, 10 Pakistan, 6 UK, 6 India, 4 Russia, 4 Canada, 1 in Peru. We got more students there, but and the rest in single digits. But it certainly represents, from Singapore to Benin is quite a long way in terms of how the internet is presented to you. We introduced the survey to students. Next. We introduced the surveys to students. We had to crystallize it for an on-the-phone kind of survey. The focus of this research is on the links between the general, globally relevant content of the course and the extent to which students like you relate this context to the local context where you live or study. So that was our best crunching down of what we were really trying to get them to think about when they undertook the survey. Okay, next. I'm going to go quite quickly through some of the questions and a little bit of the data, and hopefully people can ask more detailed things later. So the first question I'm going to look at, local context, linking my study to my local context. That was the heading of the question. Next slide. Here are some of the answers. I've sorted them with mean scores in the Likert scales from the most positive down. Equally important in developed and low middle income countries. I think that's quite interesting because to us it's an indicator that students do see that this is important. It's not just something for Californians, as it were. It's something for them, and maybe depending on where they sit, but at least they were almost unanimous about that. It's easier to learn through local examples. So they wanted to do the local because it's easier to learn, very pragmatic kind of idea. My teachers, most of my study considered examples from other countries. Even though the local is good, in practice you have to look elsewhere to sort of understand the overall thing. And then in drifting down, made me more aware of infrastructures, made me more aware of my country's digital initiatives. And very sort of negative for the last one, to learn about digital infrastructures, you have to focus on the USA. We were sort of fairly certain that they didn't really want to do that leading edge idea. But we chose to ask about the USA because we wanted a very definite image in their mind rather than we could have blah, blah, blah that question a little bit. Next one, please. Okay. Another question, what were your 3 primary learning resources? Because if they want to be local, maybe they look local for things to relate to. And here our answers are, as you would expect, the subject guide. We'd spent a lot of time writing it, so it goes way at the top there. Internet resources, YouTube, Wikipedia, we're very keen on that. There's a lot of internet resources pushed at them. Their own lectures and lecturers, most of them taught in colleges. And then you come on down and you discover discussion in class doesn't rank with them, which is always a problem. My keynote in all revision sessions is, if you can't talk about it, you can't write about it. And you've got to find somebody to talk about it with. But right down to the bottom, discussion with friends and colleagues, newspapers and magazines, these are not sources they're going to. And if you were really going to do local, I imagine you'd pursue those. In retrospect, we could have phrased some of these questions better. I think we've learned something here about how to do this one. But I think the story is pretty clear. The students want to stay with the materials you give them, the subject guide, their lecturers, lecture notes. They're not really rating those other resources. Right, next one, improvements. How can we do it better? Was this sort of question. We improve by, and we see, in a sense, a different message coming out here. So it's a little confusing to us to analyze. More focus on world-leading initiatives, more on digital currencies, Bitcoin, fintech, better coverage of digital infrastructure in low and middle income countries. But the top 2 are those leading edge things, the things that probably you don't find in your local context, depending where you live in the world. So students are giving us a little bit of a mixed message here, if we imagine there is a single message, and I'm certainly inclined to think there isn't a single message, there are just different kinds of students with different kinds of needs. Let's go to the last one, I think, here. Yes, we also had a free text element here, and I was pretty stunned that of 80 students, we got 24, 25 really thoughtful messages back in the free text. And certainly my experience of surveys in the health research area, which is where I normally do research, trying to get sensible comments back from survey work is almost impossible. Nobody's got time to fill something in. So we asked them, optional, so they didn't have to do it, do you have any final thoughts on how or why to build links between global syllabus and local learning? Send us an email if you've got a lot to say. We got no emails, but we did get these substantive comments. And I'm going to finish off by looking at some of the comments we did get. Okay, the first one, I sort of organized these thematically, but you can take what you can from them. Having local learning, students can relate and understand better. Once that is done, having to link it to global world would give students a bigger understanding. So the student who wants to work from the local out, as it were, they say. The next one, the concept is well expressed, and I think it's the student's job to find the examples in life. I really like this student because they can do an apostrophe correctly with that S. There's not many students get their apostrophes in on the phone. I'd like to meet this person. Okay, next. Globalized learning should help all students to apply what's learned to their local context rather than storing it away for the sake of a degree. So in other words, the global message is important, but you have to sort of contextualize it. Linking local learning to a global syllabus helps close the gap between knowledge retention and application, and helps students break knowledge limitations. I think this is a student who's probably done a bit of education training somewhere along the line. The knowledge retention stuff, most first-year undergraduates don't talk about that. But still, I think they're making a nice point and they're expressing it in their own way. The next one, easier to understand and more flexible in learning, using local knowledge is more helpful in comparing with developed and developing nations, but they see a comparison. They can learn through the comparativeness of it, which I think is an interesting idea, and certainly not something we focus on, I think, in our teaching materials. it's a fairly subtle idea. And I think the next one, be more relatable, provide students insight and awareness of the innovation happening around them, not just big countries. Encourages students to consider ways to improve their local infrastructures. So this is trying to give students a sense that the local learning means they can then take the knowledge back into the local context. I think that's how I read it. If we move on to somebody who sort of talks globe. Sorry, my timer's gone off, but it's a little. I do. Well, I get
to turn off.
Turn off the timer. Which button to press? I'm not used to it. I am retired. I don't do it for a living anymore, so you lose some of these skills. Yeah, there's sort of this is a minority, probably the comments we get of the globalization is important and change and advancement around the world. But then again, in our survey, people were interested in fintech and so on and so on. So they yes, there's not a single mind in this thing. The next one, again, globalization theme. People who are seeing the global context. Crucial role in globalization, it makes one of its drivers and focus on world-leading context. In other words, they're sort of, I think, asking you to go a bit more global. Fast developing, even in developing economies, with similar high-tech solutions used. And this is one of the things we do mention in the course, that often the technology, let's say you would see deployed in a middle-income country in their mobile phone networks, is the current technology. It's not that the technology is somehow not there. Maybe the context in which it works and the services it provides and so on may be rather different. And the last one I really liked. I thought, here's a student who, has learned to speak their mind. I don't really know or remember enough to give a suggestion. I thought somebody bothered to type that very politely, and I thought, well, but I can say I was impressed with these students taking the survey. A, they did understand the question, and B, they did take the time to try and tell you something. And I want to thank people at the end of this talk, but I want to thank the students, I suppose. Really, they took it seriously. So, my last substantive slide, discussion. What can we draw from all of this? I've gone rather quickly through it, but I hope you get the picture. We were trying to ask what we're trying to ask the students, and the way they tried to respond to our inquiry. Diverse opinions and perspectives. I would be disappointed if they all said the same thing, and I think what anybody thinks about this is as valid as the next person. So there will be students who are very concerned with their local context, and there will be ones who simply want to know, as it were, what the North American textbook says. And I respect that. I think the appreciation of the question itself was quite interesting. It clearly was a question these students could relate to. They felt it, I think, through all the responses. And there was evidence in their answers of the course affecting their thinking, that I think we contributed to that fact. Doing this work has been helpful to us in revising the study materials. I think we do now at least have an agenda for trying to be more responsive to local contexts in our syllabus and materials. It's not easy, and sometimes the students kind of responses I didn't put up here suggested it would be easy if you did X. Well, it's very difficult for us to do X for the local context of students in all those countries around the world. But I think we have changed a few things, and I think we could change more things in the future. And in a way, the parallel session now is about decolonization. And in a way, I think it's not perhaps where we started, but it's sort of where we're sort of going, trying to make a high-techy kind of course into a more diverse and responsive to local and contexts and environments and histories delivery. Helpful in reframing assessment activities, I think gives us really something to think about, how an assessment activities could really encompass this, because that's the way to make it central. The project, the essay, the something that perhaps that would really be meant to, you know, explicitly delivered around the context thing. What we now need, I think, a bit more is the perspective of the teachers, because I think the local teachers in the centres where most of this teaching takes place, their ability to deliver on a local agenda is various, let's say. Some yes, some no, some have the time, some don't. So that's what I want to say, and I'm happy to take people's questions, but let's just go to the last slide, because we have to thank the Centre for Distant Education, or CODE as it now is, who supported this research, and the staff at LSE and Senate House who arranged the survey distribution and went through the ethics and so on of doing that. That's really excellent. And it's one of the things I've learned working in healthcare. You should always thank people on your last slide. In information systems, do we thank people on our last slide? No, we don't. In healthcare, you do. Partly because otherwise you'll be denied access the next time, perhaps. All right, I'm going to stop there and be happy to take any questions or observations people have.
Well, we should thank Tony before he takes the questions, and then we'll thank him afterwards. Thank you very much. We do have a little bit of time for questions. I've got one that, in all this, I mean, this is very interesting. We don't really know what students want, but I guess they don't know what they want either, and we're all trying to prepare students for a future which nobody really knows. So to what extent can we be reactive to the students' suggestions, impressions about what they may think they want?
Obviously we can't, beyond a certain point, do that without becoming something very different. And part of the kind of these degree courses that is about, they're not different, they're like something else. They're parallel to, equal to degrees taught here in London, and parity. So, you know, there's a limit to what we can do. That is true. But I do know that there is a dire kind of lack of resources and materials which extends beyond the developed world in your information systems, and so am I, in our field, trying to find a textbook that takes seriously how you do IT in a middle-income country in Latin America is very hard to find in the English language. So we have got a gap. There's somebody there trying to get in.
I appreciate this, probably a difficult question to answer, but I was very interested in your observation about students wanting examples that are more similar to their own. Do you find, what level of similarity do you find would satisfy students in examples given?
I mean, the one that students use a lot when we get to digital business is online shopping. Now, if you live in the various countries we had up there, you will be using different shopping platforms. You probably won't be using Amazon in most of these countries. You'll be using something regional or something local, and you may well be using it for different kind of products and services. So in that area, it's pretty easy to say, well, I use the example, because we got a lot of Singaporean students, so I know Singapore. Shopee, yeah, is that right? Yes. You know, is a local equivalent to them, in their minds, to Amazon. That's a big online retailer where you can search and find things, get them rated, purchase them, have them delivered. I'm looking, my colleague here, I don't know your name, I'm sorry, but you're Singaporean, we were talking earlier. So in that area, it's quite easy. When you get to smart city, the one I mentioned, it's very difficult because there are similarities around, it's interesting, we have students in Russia. Moscow has parking issues, and parking apps are, and parking kind of paraphernalia is important. It's important in Singapore too, according to the students. It's not what a student from Lima, Peru will talk about. Whatever their problems are, and I'm sure they have problems with parking, it's not the one, as it were, that they would come up with. They may more likely to come up with things to do with public transport, let's say. Singaporeans, I'm going to tease him now. Singaporeans love the idea of easy parking. And I always think, well, why not leave the car at home and just get on that excellent public transport system, and then you wouldn't have the problem of parking. But I suspect I'm naive in that. So I think we have to stretch ourselves a bit to encompass such things. Somebody who's talking about, let's say, fairly simple mobile phone information services, it may feel a bit dull to us, but it may be quite radical in the context of where people live and work, to be able to, let's say, check that the bus is running today. You know, not is it coming in a minute, but is it running today? You know, so these, sometimes we have to sort of stretch ourselves to get the equivalence. And I think the students aren't silly. They think, oh, those examiners, they're not going to give me credit when I talk about how we can find out if the bus is running today. I better find an example which sounds a little bit more, you know, up there. So I think we have to change a little bit and pass a slightly different message to people. But I would say our students are, not all of them, but many of them, intelligent. They get it. You know, you're dealing with people who can think, and they do find the examples. And sometimes you're really surprised at the examples they find and give you. You know, pleasantly surprised. They really do that.
Terrific, thank you. I think we are out of time, so if we could thank
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now we move to two lightning presentations, which are both going to be beamed in to us from around the world, hopefully. The first is Lightning 19, Promising Practice from Propitious Progress, which I can't say very quickly. Verda Yousuf from Pakistan, who I see is at TMUC, and TMUC is a partner of my own institution, so it is very good to see them. So I will pass over to Verda, and you have about 10-12 minutes to present, please, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for questions if there are them. So take it away.
Wonderful. So, so lovely to see you all. I think it was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. This is Verda Yousuf, and I'm representing the Millennium Universal College. We're a learning partner with the University of London, and so excited at the same time, so happy to be on this board with such amazing people who have joined us as well. So the chance makes all the difference, but as per my abstract and the feedback that we received, I'm hoping to share what it is like in Pakistan and teaching for, you know, with the provision that we have at University of London particularly. So like the topic itself says, promising practice makes propitious progress. We're talking about the right the right advantageous practice that actually makes sure that the student progresses. That's the idea. And moving on, what we see is that technically, when we're talking about distance learning, we have supported distance learning model with University of London. We have a franchise model online and distance with other educational partners as well. Long story short, there are others, and there are some blended versions that we take care of. So ours is apparently the supported distance learning model. When it comes to the online provision, we're talking about asynchronous, self-paced and assisted learning model with students. And when it comes to the distance one, we have assistance from the, of course, learning partner, and of course it's synchronous. The only difference where we will now come to is the fact that Pakistan operates at a huge distance, which has been covered by digital technology, of course. And after the advent of pandemic, when it hit us hard, I mean, our students aren't used to being online at all. So it was a big thing. And not only was it a big thing or a new thing for students, it was a huge difference for most of the teachers. So we had to, work through an entire sort of, tangents where we had to also touch pedagogy and strategies and the right ways of practices in the classroom for teachers. So I'm talking about how this technically we actually thought of approaching to make sure first the teachers are on board so that the student gets on board as well. So while a few teachers would use proper stylus and their tabs while working on the screens, there were days where teachers were just using textbooks and they were teaching with just help of a projector. So when it comes to that, we were to support, of course, the right practices in Pakistan because the pandemic had hit and we wanted to talk about the right teaching methods. So pedagogy particularly could be just teacher-centered, it could just be teacher-led, it could be student-led or centered, and could have high and low tech approach. And in that regard, of course, we're talking about the teacher being in charge if it's the teacher-led part, and student being in charge, let's just say the learning is driven from them. And then when it comes to low or high tech approach, we're talking about VLEs and learning management systems. When it comes to the practice part, it's basically the application of your pedagogy. So you want to be the right person doing the right thing. Coming to the pedagogical practices, it's just, like it says, action developed from planning and systemization of dynamics of learning, process to concrete realization of learning. So the idea is to make sure students actually learn. The idea is to ensure their learning takes place. Now, coming from a system where they were just used to seeing the teacher, being physically in contact and the visual is so real, it's highly unlikely for the students to take a complete shift. But it taught us too much, and I think we realized that there's always going to be a need to have a hybrid system maybe, and of course the VLEs of course then come in play and they help us out. The ways in which distance and online education in Pakistan allowed us for such access was our own personal VLE to begin with. Of course, that's where we track their progress. At the same time, MS Teams is a software that we use for online classes to ensure students are in touch with us and are taking classes, etc. Apart from that, the support from our learning partners played a vital role. So where we have MOOCs and really online portals, if study materials, sometimes our teachers are also using it. So the access to this material on portals was a big help when it comes to students coming and accessing. I put that picture right there, which talks about global in reach and local in access. And it's talking about a little version that we had, a little slogan we had for team, you see. So TNE, transnational education, already is a big concept in Pakistan. People are still transitioning to understand its importance. So when it comes to that, we've always said that we're local in access. Now that purpose gets defeated when the child cannot come to the campus. So learning through the experience of pandemic, we realized that we had to, of course, make LMS and VLE a permanent feature in our teaching methodologies. And of course, that's how we moved onwards. So when I discussed about how we wanted the teachers to adapt, we wanted them to, of course, adapt to a few pedagogical skills that will help them ensure a few aspects that the student is at least consistent in attending classes, because that also became an issue. When you're online, you can't really monitor their attendance as well. So sometimes it's a little hard for students to show up because their access and the physical appearance is not there. So they take it a little light. So how do you ensure that the student stays engaged in the classroom? And that's that kind of a practice that we require. So a few things that we jotted down, we understood, was the fact that we need to ensure that the spiral of learning takes place the right way. And when we talk about spiral of learning, we're talking about a very basic concept where the previous and prior knowledge of the student is built upon. Because a child needs to, these young adults really need to be apprised about what they know, and we need to build upon the same. Moving on, of course, the classroom layout physically changed, but how would you want them to be arranged? And it just not particularly talks about a physical layout. We're talking about collaboration. We're talking about groups being formed for project work, and so many sessions and discussion forums that we want them to be participating in. So the classroom real time happens while an online class is taking place. At the same time, when you set them off to do some project, they have to collaborate. And with the kind of restrictions, you can't leave homes, I think it set a very good standard for us as well to ensure our students were present and they were participating at any pace at all. So we were also tracking their timing over VLEs to ensure that they are spending time and actually going through whatever they're studying. Apart from that, setting expectations is another notion that we actually came across. I think we really needed them to convert from lower to higher order of thinking skills. It's not just critical thinking. You want them to evaluate, you want them to make the right assumptions, the right decision making, and we're talking about a lot of critical thinking here. And moving on, differentiation is another case. You never find the same cohort. You never find the same kind of students in the classroom. Now that's a challenge when it comes to a non-physical space where you're going to be operating. So we are far from metaverse right now. We are very much into online at the moment, but you still want to ensure students are differentiated well. So that's another thing that we wanted our teachers to sort of dive in again, because in classroom and physical presence, it's easier to monitor, but when it comes to that, coming to online, then it becomes a little bit of a problem. Apart from them, apart from those, spaced repetition is another concept that we came across. So this is going to be eventually a case where we support scaffolding. And why does that happen? Because students, if they're not in classroom and not in continuous monitoring from the teacher soon after they graduate from the A levels, also, so I think somebody's unmute, so I can hear myself. Anyway, so what happens is that these students sort of forget the fact that we have to be, retaining information. And that was a little practice that we introduced, and I think was very fascinating to see students understand the concept of spacing out their revisions and their learning modules. So a concept that is harder needs to be revised again and again while the rest isn't. So how do you evaluate your students? Which concept is harder for them to understand and sort of retain and put into practice? So multiple activities were introduced, of course, and we wanted our teachers to adapt that first. So of course, a certain number of formative and summative assessments were linked, where students were supposed to be exhibiting and showing how they are going to be adapting to a concept, and which felt a little difficult was, of course, revised again and again. So there were a few ways that we sort of tried to ensure that Pakistani students were adapting to our transition to online learning. Apart from that, quality assurance becomes a must habit. I believe every institution must have it, and we all do. It's about monitoring the quality of teaching. I think that enabled all the heads and the HODs and people in charge also take a massive participatory role in ensuring students were studying and the teacher was teaching in the right way, of course, it's wanted. Because in classrooms, it was still accessible to enter one. This way, all classrooms were accessible to the head or the person in charge, academic head whatsoever. Apart from that, engagement of assessment activity, of course, is important. Like we always talk about, the right assessment is the key to understanding the pace at which the child is learning. So that became another essential part. Moving on, student academic feedback was really important. So it's highly likely that feedback is always gained, because then we collaborate, we put our heads together and we decide as to how can we improve. So if the student is not, let's say, grasping a concept because of a certain way of teaching, we adapt that. Or in the same way, likewise, we adapt or we tell that particular strategy of teaching or classroom teaching method to another teacher, and we make it a habit to build around a culture of teaching each other the right and the best practices where students learn the right way. Because mobilizing children was no more an option. You had to make sure that they were actively participating in everything right in front of you. So from our side, this is all, because I thought shouldn't be crossing the time. So 5 minutes from my side. Thank you so much for hearing us out. If there are any questions, please feel free to let us know.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We have a quick question. We've probably got time for a question if there is. I have one if no one has. I mean, just in terms of where you are now and linking back to our keynote earlier, is this a transition or is this a sort of steady state? Now we've all gone through these changes occasioned by COVID, occasioned by whatever. Do you think you are now in a steady state where this is how it will be in the future, or is this a sort of transition to something?
All right, so I think Pakistan became pretty ready about how anything could happen. So with the, be it a political turmoil in the city or whatsoever, we're not canceling classes anymore. So this is definitely not a transition anymore. We've adapted it properly and wholly. So kudos to Pakistan for that. I mean, I'm glad we are ready for anything that hits us that hard, and we are able to, sort of ensure the teaching and learning is not disturbed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let's thank for a final time. So thank you. Very good. So, and we move to our second lightning presentation. This is Lightning 22, a Chinese case study of distance education practices for rural areas. Zhao, Tingting of the Open University China. Hopefully, Zhao, you are with us.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, fine.
Yes, okay. Good morning, everyone. I come from China, Open University of China, and my name is Zhao Tingting. The topic I want to share with everyone is a Chinese case study of distance education practices from rural areas. And as far as we know, China has a huge population. It's about 1.4 billion people in our country. And so online education is very important for us. It can enable more people in the remote areas to learn high quality educational resources. And today I want to share a successful case with everybody. This time is the higher education training of farmers in China's online education. And in my topic, there are 3 parts in the contents. The first part is a description of implementing organization or individual, and part 2 is project complementation, and the third is project results. First, we can see the first part describe a description of the implementing organization. I want to introduce our university, which named Open University of China. Founded in 1979, the Open University of China provided degree and non-degree education to all members of society under the direct guidance of Chinese Ministry of Education. It's supported by modern information technology with the aim of promoting equal access to quality education. For now, it works about more than past 40 years, and OUC has operated a national system of headquarters, and there are 45 provincial branches, and there are in China there are more than 15.20 million learners have graduated from our university in the past 40 years. And part 2, I want to share the project complementation. The name, the topic of the project is one college student per village, with the support of the concept of lifting these advantaged groups out of poverty through education since 2004. And the OUC have been carrying out the program in order to implement the national strategy of the poverty in the rural and remote areas through open and distance education by modern information college. And in our project, in order to fulfill the following specific objectives, there are 5 points. Point 1 is facilitate online and offline learning environments. And the second one is created customized learning plans. And the third is select categories and qualified learning resources. And the fourth is complement automatic assessment and give instant feedback that teachers can trace. And the last one is decrease the burden of routine work for students, for teachers. In the picture, we can see before teaching, our tutors can preparing their teaching. They can create a tailor-made plan for each learner and automatically trace their learning progress. It's very convenient. And during the teaching, our teachers and the students can use the smart robot, can distinguish learners' intentions using voice and the analysis, and can test learners and give feedback to their questions. It's very useful and it's very effective. And the third one is after training. After teaching, learners can submit either part on the smart learning platform. And this platform is very meaningful for everyone in teaching and studying. A problem in the system will be feedback to learners automatically, and relevant college can be forwarded to them to further study. We operated the project for more than 40 years, and we have many resources. The project has been complemented in 1,513 of OUC's country-level study centers, and in 31 provinces, which 64% are in underdeveloped central and western areas of China. It's very meaningful for our country. And 29 programs in diploma and undergraduate levels have been provided. And until the October 2020, more than 800,000 learners have been enrolled in the project, and more than 500,000 village cadres have been trained, and there are more than 500,000 people have graduated. I'm very happy to share our project to everybody, and this project will be continue in OUC. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So,
thank you.
Sorry about a little bit of technical problems.
Yes,
I'm
very sorry.
Happens when we teach online. I think for those of us who are based in many other countries, the sheer scale of what you do is quite breathtaking. You know, the number of students, the number of graduates. You know, we think we deal with a lot when we're dealing with 20,000 students. You're dealing with millions, so that is always very impressive.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got a question.
Yeah.
Zhao, hope you can hear me.
Hello.
I agree with Philip that the scale and the numbers of students you are dealing with and your support is phenomenal. Well done. The thing I want to ask you is, you describe all these changes and all these initiatives. What about student feedback? What do the students think about all this?
Yes, the students is all over China. It's about in 31 provinces, and there are many differences in our students, in our teachers. So the smart and the robot and the digital teaching and study platform is very useful, very important for us, because everyone can log in the smart teaching and studying platform to start their teaching and to start their study. And we have it's about more than 500 skill staff for operate the smart and the robot to support the teaching and the study. In the future, I think the project will be work well than now, and there are more and more people in China will use the robot, use the digital platform to lifting education, lifting study. Thank you.
Do the students like what you're doing?
I think most of them like, and perhaps maybe some of them do not satisfy with this model or our teaching or our resources, because there are there is a huge people and they are all different. The aims or the needs of the students is very different. The young students of our university is about 16. And the old students, the age of old students in our university is about more than 70 years old. So we think we should create a very different serious various resources for different groups. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. I mean, you're demonstrating that not only are you dealing with scale, you're also dealing with breadth in terms of the ages of students, the backgrounds of students, the technologies of students, the past education. So it is, yes. it is very impressive that you're managing to service that such a wide range of students. I think we are exactly out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We look forward to hearing more about these projects in the future. So thank you.